Mike's volunteer.
One of the sisters finally emailed me and I was like, you're fine.
I got a real short one.
Yes. If you could just recite the 10 Commandments, the ones you don't like.
That'd be good.
Okay. All right, if you will please stand with me for the invocation. In absence of one of our ministers, I'll be giving the invocation today. If we all bow our heads, dear Lord, we ask that you continue to bless our city, bless our citizens, all of the residents, dear Lord. We ask that you guide our meeting, that we be wise and prudent. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess I'll have to move and have you as a permanent.
Okay. All right. We will now officially start the meeting. All right. I call the meeting to order. And Tina, if you could please call the roll.
Mayor Young.
Present.
Vice Mayor Wilcox.
Present.
Commissioner Greenlee.
Present.
Commissioner Murphy.
Present.
Commissioner Slattery.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. And now we will open for a public forum. Persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items that are not on the agenda may do so at this time when called upon by the mayor. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes and should give their name and address when addressing the commission. Any presentation is for information purposes only. Any and all written communication should be deposited with the city clerk. At this time, we will open public forum, and we have our Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Jill Thorne. Mrs. Thorne.
Whoever used this last was very tall. I'm just here, first of all, I just want to thank the city crew for hanging the banners in such a timely manner that I reported in my board meeting on Zoom that they should be going up, and my board said, Jill, they're already up. So I really appreciate that. And I also want to say thank you to them for their help in the BC Bash. As some of you guys know, we throw it every year in August to welcome the students back. We join the rock group leaders to host that, and they bring down all of the freshmen, so like 700 kids. And we moved it to the 400 block, and I had such good feedback from the businesses that were there of how they could get to see all of the kids and they weren't so spread out. So I really appreciate Steve Gardner making that happen. The biggest thing was getting water, and he made it happen, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then one of the other things I just want to kind of touch base on our Main Street level, we're looking at maybe presenting a common consumption area. We are one of the few cities in Main Street world that do not have it. So I would like to be able just to present a bullet point and ask that if any commissioners have any questions on how it works, I'll be glad to field those. So I just want to let you guys know in 2026, I am planning on presenting that plan to you guys. So if there's anything I can give you guys up front to help you with that, I would appreciate it.
Okay,
What is
thank
it
you.
you're talking? What is this?
A common consumption area,
What's that
an
mean?
open consumption area, so where you can,
Still raw beverage.
Yeah.
We can drink our beer?
alcoholic beverages are
You can
allowed
drink
within the region.
alcohol from establishments, not your own,
Yeah.
sir. Mr. Slattery.
You can buy from one of the local establishments and take it out into the common area,
Yeah.
basically.
Have you,
Okay.
do you have a proposed area that you're considering?
My proposed area would be the Main Street District, so which
Define
runs
it.
from River to 10th Street, Main, Commercial, Kansas Avenue.
Okay.
Which of course, that would be within the guidelines of the city to tell me whether or not, what lines they want. If they don't want the whole Main Street District, that's fine. We can shrink it down.
Before you do that, before you make your proposal, I'm going to suggest, don't have to do it, just suggest that you speak to those businesses that do sell alcohol that would be directly involved, see what their interest level.
Yeah, and that is in the plan to do that. I really would like to have the commission's blessing before I do all of that work, just because the city would have to be the one to say, yes, Jill, move forward with this. As far as, for instance, Mueller's, you can say, yes, I want to participate, or no, I don't. And then if you are a participating business, then when they come in and they purchase a beer from you and their kids want to go play on the green space, they can legally put it in the CCA cup, approved cup, and walk off your deck. And the ABC can't fine you for letting people take alcohol off your property and outside of your alcohol lines that you drew on your map. So, but they can't bring it, if they go and buy it at Service Brewing and they have it in their CCA cup, they cannot bring it into the Mueller's establishment. So it has to stop at the door, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, those businesses have quite a bit of extra responsibility, I think, in such a plan.
Yeah.
I think the general public would say, oh, those businesses would want to sell more. I don't know that that's necessarily true.
What would be the disadvantage to it?
Underage, number one. Two, she just said you can't go from one to the other.
Can you go back to the one you bought it from?
Assume you go back.
So yeah, if you, let's say I went and bought a beer from Mueller's and it's in my CCA cup, right? If I say, bartender, I want this to go, they put it in this special cup, and then I can walk outside of Mueller's. I cannot walk back in Mueller's with that cup, regardless of whether I bought it at Mueller's, regardless of whether I bought it at Service.
That was my question.
But however, I can take that cup from Mueller's and I can walk down the block and I can go, if, let's say, Backroad Atlas is a sponsoring business, which says that they are open to people walking into their store, I can walk my Mueller's beer into Backroad Atlas, drink my beer while I shop. So,
All right. And
anyway, this will all be in my proposal, but
Right.
Okay,
I just want to let you guys know it was coming.
fantastic. And then one other thing that would be helpful that I know that you will do, you mentioned that we are one of the few in the Main Street program that is not, if we can know who else is also
Absolutely.
Consuming. Appreciate it. All
Yep.
right. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, if
But
not,
thank you to the city,
thank
guys. I
you.
appreciate them.
Oh, and thank you so much, Jill, for everything that you do
Yeah.
and that the chamber does.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, at this time, do we have any other presentations, persons who wish to address the city at this time? If not, we will close. All right, our public forum is closed. At this time, we will have our consent agenda presented by our city manager, Mr. Mark Westhoff. Mr. Westhoff.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. So we have 4 items on the consent agenda tonight. First is to approve the meeting minutes from the August 18th, 2025 City Commission meeting. The second is to adopt Resolution 3425, authorizing a special event permit for the sale and consumption of alcohol on River Road between Commercial and the edge of Independence Park for the Muddy River Music Festival on September 13th. The third is to authorize staff to execute the master services agreement with Conduit Technical Services for managed IT services for the city in the annual amount of $97,500 and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement and the pricing quote. This was the company that you selected last week through a vote, and this was the negotiated contract. And then the fourth is to authorize the submission of the federal fund exchange request to KDOT. This is where the city receives some federal funds through KDOT to put towards highway projects. This year, we put it towards the US 59 resurfacing, our match portion of that project.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Westhoff or concerns?
Might ask a question. Have you got any advance ticket sale information?
For Muddy River, the chamber runs Muddy River.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you ran everything.
Slinging alcohol for it.
Okay,
I know they have it.
But tickets are for sale now, if people want to buy any Muddy River Festival tickets.
Well, I move we accept the consent agenda as read then.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda as printed. All those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. At this time, we will have new business, and first on the agenda is the city manager's recommended 2026 budget. Mr. Westhoff, and we thank you
Okay.
for the presentation. And the presentation materials, your PowerPoint will be available.
They are currently
online?
available online.
Okay,
Yes.
currently available online.
On the
Thank you.
city website, and we've also posted them on the Facebook page.
Okay.
So this is just the proposal from staff, and having gone through all of the workshops with city commission, kind of where we came to the public hearing for revenue neutral rate, and the budget is next week on Monday night at 4:30 PM. So tonight, it's just putting this out there to the public and to you all so that it's available for a week before the public hearing. So, just on the first slide, just a couple things on the budget and tax timeline in the state of Kansas. Next slide, Tina. Obviously, on July 20th was the deadline for all taxing entities to inform the clerk if they intend to exceed the revenue neutral rate, and to set a ceiling for their budgeting process where they cannot go above that amount or that tax levy throughout the budgeting process. We held our hearing on July 14th. This is also the value that was sent out to all residents. This is the tax amount that was sent out to all residents in the flyer. So that was the ceiling amount, not this final proposed budget amount. So that's one note. In June, July, and August, department heads presented and discussed their requested budgets to me and to the finance director, and we had some preliminary discussions about those. And then we held 5 budget workshops with the city commission, which you were all present for, and the department heads to go through each budget line and make decisions about salaries, operations, projects, and equipment goals. The goal of that process was to create a reasonable budget that balances increasing costs and wages without creating a large tax burden increase on the city residents. On August 14th, the city published the proposed budget as of that date in the Atchison Globe. This was an added step. We put this out to the public. And since then, we've continued working on it. So that is also not the final number. That was as of that date. Today, on September 2nd, I'm presenting the final proposed budget from the workshops and the work that we did afterwards. This is not a state-required step, but we're completing it for the sake of added public transparency. And then next week, on September 8th, we will have the revenue neutral rate public hearing. And then we will have the budget public hearing. We will set the mill levy and adopt the final budget. It must be adopted at that meeting, turned into the county by October 1st. Any changes to the budget, to the proposed budget, can be made up to and including in that public meeting next week. Next slide. Talked about this a little bit in July, but just kind of wanted to go over it again. That property taxes, specifically residential property taxes, have 3 main components. There's the appraised value of a property, which is set by, it's determined by the county appraiser, but it's really set by the market rate in our county. That uses some formulas. You know, you can chat with the county appraiser to figure out that, but that is how, it's basically supposed to find the market value of a home or any other property. Then there's the state assessment rate, which is 11.5%. So you multiply the value, the appraised value of the home times 11.5% to come up with the assessed value. This is the value that can be taxed. Anything over that cannot be taxed. So in Kansas, again, the state sets that assessment rate at 11.5% for residences. And then the final step is the local taxing entities like the city, the county, and the school district who set the mill levy that is taxed on that assessed value. Ultimately, 1 mil is equal to $1 for every $1,000 of assessed value. So that's kind of taxes quickly. There's more information on that, but that's just a quick summary of what all goes into a tax bill. I have on there the share of the city's taxes, but we'll get to that in the presentation as well. Next slide. So the revenue neutral rate, the concept of a mill can be a little confusing. It obviously differs somewhat depending on the values and the valuations. And some years, keeping the mill levy the same for the city or the county or the school district will actually result in higher tax revenue, higher taxes. So in 2021, the Kansas State Legislature created the revenue neutral rate. The intention of this is to provide cities, counties, and school districts and other taxing entities with a mill levy number that if that taxing entity sets that mill levy, it means they bring in the same amount of taxes as the year before. Taxes across their district essentially average out to the same amount. It doesn't mean that each individual person's taxes don't go up, but the average across would be the same amount. If any taxing entity intends to go over that revenue neutral rate, thereby increasing taxes across the board, they must hold a public hearing, which is that process that will happen next week. Next slide. So based on the final work that we've done, the workshops we all held, the mill levy for the proposed 2026 budget for the city and for the public library, which is included in the city's budget, but we don't have full control over their requests, is 46.358 mils, which is 1.493 mils over the revenue neutral rate, which equates to a 2.5% increase in tax revenue from last year, or from this year to next year. Again, that is actually lower than what we published in the Globe in August. We published 46.498, which was around 3.2%, 3.3%. So we've gone back through and made some additional reductions through working with staff to bring it down to 2.5%, which is below inflation numbers for the last year. A couple notes on the last 6 years. The average tax increase per year for the city of Atchison, for just our portion of the taxes, over the last 6 years is 2.21% if you include this proposed increase. 2 of the last 6 years, the city has either been revenue neutral or cut taxes in 2022 and 2024. Again, that does not necessarily relate to any individual person's taxes going down, but our share of the property taxes were flat or went down those 2 years, and the overall average is 2.21%. So kind of a question of if we were revenue neutral those years or cut taxes, why did people's property taxes go up overall is the next slide. The city is the green portion of these charts. The library is the purple. It's included in our mill levy, but we separated them out for the chart so you could see the differences. In 2021, which is 2020's taxes, the city accounted for about 30% of the tax bill paid by a resident within city limits. Over time, that percentage has fallen until this next year, next slide, with the proposed, that's this year's, we're at 25%. So this year in 2025, the taxes that a resident in the city pays, 25% go to the city versus 30% in 2021. What that ultimately means is that the other taxing entities have increased more than the city has over that time period. You can see the pie slices in those charts. Ours is getting smaller and theirs is getting larger. And by most accounts, this will likely continue into next year. Next slide. Another way to visualize it is using the mill levy rate. The cities is in green on these charts. The counties are red and the school district is blue. These are just the three largest taxing entities, so they're the easiest to compare. The 2026 numbers on this are all based on the proposed numbers of this date, so they are not final. The county and the school district can be a different number in the end, and the city can as well, but this is with the current proposed best information I have. You can see that over time, as values have gone up, the city has reduced our mill levy following that revenue neutral rate guidance. We've still been over some years revenue neutral, but we've been close, which means that our actual mill levy has fallen as values have gone up, and the other charts look a little different. So this is just an example of where the tax dollars go. Next slide. Here's some highlights for the proposed budget. Based on discussions with City Commission and staff, we settled on a 3% plus $1 merit raise for city staff. That does two things. One, for all city staff except me, I'm not getting a raise. So for all city staff, they have the option for that. It's up to the department heads to give or not to give that based on merit. And then it is also going to bring up the lower wage earners more than the higher wage earners with that dollar in there. So that was kind of the idea of that, was to help bring up some of the lower earners in the city versus a higher percentage. Couple other highlights. We are moving to a model of going out for contractors for engineering and planning. It's not necessarily our preference, but it is, for engineering at least, we have been unable to hire a city engineer. For planning, we likely don't have a full time work for a planner. And our current zoning administrator and building inspector combo, he does a little bit of both, but he is retiring. So we will have to get a planning consultant. We're looking at a new city website and some tech upgrades. We've talked about those. The website is required to meet some ADA regulations that are changing next summer and Kansas state regulations as well. The tech upgrades are going to increase efficiency across the city and increase security, and those are covered by the remaining ARPA funds, so they do not impact the taxes. We also included in 2026 our general obligation road bond. We do this every 3 years generally, and we'll talk about it in a little bit as well, but we did include that in 2026 for some larger street projects. We went through, upon direction with City Commission, and staff made cuts to a number of equipment purchases for 2026 and also reduced various operations budget lines, again, as requested by the City Commission. And even with all of that, we will be making, the budget proposes to make a $9.3 million investment in capital improvement and infrastructure projects next year, as well as $1.19 million in equipment upgrades that are needed across city departments, while also maintaining healthy fund balances for the future, not too much, but a good amount to make sure we're safe while not hoarding the money.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
As far as the reserves that we keep, are we mandated by ourselves, or is there a state mandate that says you need to have a certain percent of your budget?
Correct.
Is that a?
There are state guidelines
There
for
are
those
state guidelines?
fund balances.
So we have to say keep, not like for the water department, we have to keep 10% in reserves, and I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't know that the water department is.
There are policies,
Yes, I mean, we have our own purchasing policies as well, but
financial policies.
with the general fund, I believe it's 10% is the goal with the fund balance for the general fund.
But is that mandated by the state government?
Yes. Yeah. It's, I mean, you can change that depending on certain situations, but they want you to maintain a healthy fund balance, but not too high as well, like I said. Yeah.
No need to do it now, but is there, we can get a list of the funds that we're holding back and what department they apply to?
Yes, we have that tonight. Yep.
That's,
Mhm.
thank you.
So obviously expenses are only one piece of the budget. The other side of that is revenue. So a couple notes. As I said, with all of that capital improvement money that we're talking about, infrastructure projects, the general fund, the only funds that actually impact the tax rate on residents are the general fund, the debt service fund, and the library fund, which again, we don't have full control over the library's budget. We help a little bit with that. These are the only tax levy funds. The proposed budget for 2026, total between those is $13,700,000. But only $5 million in property taxes is needed to cover those expenses, which means that around 2/3 is covered by other revenue. So what other revenue is that covered by? Those are covered by state and federal grants, interest that the city receives on our investments and our savings accounts, those fund balances, sales tax collected within the city, franchise, special, and bed taxes that we collect, utility fees, assessments, permits, and fines, and then those fund balances, as well as the balances in the CIP and the ERP, which ultimately equate to savings from the past, either places where we've been more efficient and so saved money, or where we've intentionally set money aside for future projects and save up over time. And then the last bucket is those ARPA funds, which this is 26 is the final year for those. We have around 180,000 left that we're trying to put into one-time projects, not ongoing expenses. Next slide. Wanted to do a quick case study on probably the thing that we hear the most about, which is streets. 2025 expenses for projects, for street and road projects, which is non-salary or operation costs. Around $445,000 goes to debt payments for past general obligation bonds, which we've talked about. The city has funded street projects through those general obligation bonds pretty much every 3 years. That's mostly for large-scale projects that are not on the highway system. We put in about $250,000 to $300,000 in CIP for projects. Most years, some years we'll take a break from that, but generally that's a pretty good number. And then we have in there $500,000 per year that goes towards projects that are on the highway system, so they're also part of KDOT's programming. For instance, the US 59 paving that happened this year. So that brings the total expenses for the projects to around $1.2 million per year. For non-property tax revenue, that also comes in, because again, expenses is only one side. We receive $280,000 per year, approximately, from the state highway and motor fuel tax fund. We get that from the state. And then we get $400,000 on average as a match for those KDOT projects. Well, we match that money. So those KDOT projects come out to less than the $500,000 because KDOT's paying a good portion of it. This nets to about $520,000 for streets and roads in the current proposed budget that come from those other revenues or from tax collection. And just a quick note on our brick streets, that those projects generally cost 5 to 10 times more than an asphalt project of the same scope and size. And we currently budget about $35,000 per year towards just brick street projects, which is a fairly low amount for the amount of brick streets that we have. Next slide. So under the current model with the general obligation bond every 3 years, here are some pros and cons of doing it that way. A pro is that the cities receive a preferred interest rate on those bonds. So generally speaking, that's often lower than inflation, which means that dollars spent today are a good investment, even though we're paying on them over the course of time. That's kind of the main pro, if I'm honest, of that model. There are some cons. The large projects that we do are only completed every 3 years. It makes planning a little more difficult, and it definitely leads to some growing frustration in the in-between years, as we don't have the funds to do another large project, and people see those projects starting to pile up, and then they get done, every 3 years. It also increases the city's debt ratio, which is currently okay right now, but it would make future bonds, especially any larger bonds, if for a big project that we need to do non-streets related, it would make those a little more difficult to obtain. We would not get quite as good a rate, and if we get higher on that debt ratio, then we might not be able to find those bonds. Again, as I said, the debt service payments do impact the mill levy, so that total does go into the calculation for determining how high the mill levy needs to be. And generally speaking, when you're funding it this way, when costs go up on a project, the scope has to come down because the funding is set at a dollar amount, the dollar amount of the bond, and so as the project costs go up, the only option we have left is to do less work on that project. Next slide. If there were to be a road and street sales tax, this is another model for funding those kinds of projects. A half-cent sales tax would yield something like $1.2 million per year under the current estimates. That would effectively double the street project budget without increasing property taxes. Sales tax moves with inflation, so as costs go up, so does the revenue, and projects can scale with that. Another benefit, if the city residents were to approve something like a half-cent sales tax for streets, would be that as those general obligation bonds that we've done in the past pay off, the debt service mill levy could go down. Another benefit is that sales taxes are paid by institutions and residents that do not traditionally pay property taxes. Sales taxes are also paid by visitors to the city who come and use our infrastructure, but they don't live here, so they don't pay any property taxes. They don't contribute to that total. Cons of a sales tax like this: sales taxes are considered a regressive tax, which means that the more you pay for something, the higher the taxes that you pay, right? That's how that works. When you go to the store, you buy something that's $100, you spend more than if you buy something that's $50. Rather than a progressive tax, which is that the more you earn in assets or income, the higher you pay in a tax. The sales taxes also generally disproportionately impact lower wage earners because everyone pays them at the same rate across the board. And as a reference point, Atchison's current sales tax rate in most of the city is 8.5%. 6.5% goes to the state, 1% to Atchison County, and 1% to the city. The state average in the state of Kansas is 8.6%, so we're right at state average right now. And the highest sales tax rates in the state are 11.5%. I'm not necessarily proposing a road or street sales tax today. I wanted to give you an option though, or I wanted to give you some information on how something like a sales tax like that could affect property taxes, which is kind of what we're looking at in the near future. Yes?
The Kansas legislature took food off of their portion of the sales tax last year.
Okay.
And the city and the county still collect a percent each on groceries, so to speak.
Okay.
And thinking about this, if we were to take that 2% off for groceries that the city still collects and then put this other sales tax on, it'd be kind of a wash. Would it?
I don't know that I could say it would be a wash. So if we reduced the sales tax on food,
I mean, you still have the same tax on cars and
yes.
stuff like that, but the people that were the primary beneficiaries of the sales tax coming off of food for your lower income folks that you were talking about.
Sure.
And if you were to take that other 2%, they could, if, and I'm not making the proposal either, but if we were to add that 1% sales tax for highways or roads or streets, it'd be a little easier for the lower income people to make that adjustment.
Does anybody know if that 2% is coming to the city, that entire 2%?
Which 2%?
That he's talking about? The
1%.
2% on the food?
On the food.
1%.
1% on
1%.
Well, the city gets 1%, the county gets 1%.
Yes, and I can't control the county. So 1%,
Well, I'm just saying there's
our
two-
share is 1%.
There's 2%
Correct.
sales tax on grocery items.
Yes.
Like if you go buy a can of corn, you're going to pay 2%.
Right, but we only control the 1% with the
I know, that's
city.
why I was saying the
Yeah.
1% for, and I'm just throwing it out there for comparison, you know,
Right.
how much we take in with that 1% now.
I'd have to do the math. We don't have a breakdown of how
Okay.
much the sales tax we collect
Count.
comes from any one business or any one item. So that would be something we'd have to talk with the state about to even determine
Yeah,
what that
well, I
impact
mean,
would be.
We have guidelines, I just do it, we have guidelines of what you can tax.
Sure.
And I was just throwing that out there because I think it should be part of the mix if this discussion goes much further.
Okay.
Okay, all right, very good. Point taken.
Okay.
Okay, next slide.
Okay.
And then the rest of the slides are the actual proposed budget. Again, these are available online. They're going to be available for a week before the public hearing next week. This is the operations budget separated by fund. You can see the resources available. This shows you those fund balances. See, the general fund is projected at 10%. Water and wastewater are higher in part because we do save the money that then goes into the CIP projects in the future in those funds. The insurance reserve is high because it's an insurance reserve and we keep it high until we need it. Debt service is at 5%. It's a good amount. You all directed us to spend down the fund balances in motor fuel tax, special alcohol tax, parks and recs tax. Those had grown over the years, I think, as we just hadn't adjusted for how much we were collecting. Those are the special taxes we get from the state for certain things. Those fund balances had grown, so this year we're putting those into one-time projects for this budget year, which is why the expenditures are a little higher on those for this first year, but we're targeting between 10 and 15% for those fund balances. Equipment reserve, the land bank is high. We sold a property last year, sold a handful of properties, and we're working on ways to appropriately spend that money to try to increase growth in the city. That's the intention of that money, which is why that reserve is high, even though it's a small fund. And then the wastewater CSO CIP, the specific projects for wastewater and CSO. That fund balance, as you go through that chart, it gets really low, in part because those projects only really work when we are able to get grants and other funding, which is out there, but we can't predict what we might get 4 years from now. So that balance goes really low. But those projects just wouldn't happen without some other kind of other revenue to help them. Next
Is
slide.
that in our booklet here?
Yes, sir.
What page is that, do you know?
Should be page 31.
31?
Yes.
31.
Oh, I went past it, that's what happened.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I thought we
Next
went
page
past
is a slightly more broken down version by department for the operations costs for next year. You see the total in the general fund is the 11,700,000. Total for water is 5 million, wastewater is 3.5 million, and the solid waste and refuse is 1.3 million. Again, this will be available. Generally speaking, when you kind of break it out, it's kind of a quarter to police, a quarter to fire, a quarter to public works, and a quarter to everything else. It's not 100% accurate to just throw it out that way, but it's fairly close. So. Next slide. And then we have in the packet and in the information as well, the 5-year CIP plan, just several pages long. I would encourage anyone who has the opportunity to look at the projects in there. Remember that these are all only proposed projects, that they all come to the City Commission for approval before they are completed. So, something in 2029 we might be starting to save up for. That doesn't mean that it's 100% going to happen. It still has to come to the City Commission. Pricing might change. We might have different priorities in 2029, but this is showing that we're saving up for it. And then the only other thing I'd say is to check that, like I said, the revenue at the top, the revenue lines at the top show any grants or other programs that are going to offset some of those expenses. So. And there's a couple pages of the CIP. Again, this is going to be available for a week.
Okay.
And then the next one is the wastewater and CSO CIP that I mentioned.
Yeah.
This one, as I said, it goes
That's right.
down below zero in the future, in part because these projects must have some kind of alternative funding. We've previously secured federal funds for a lot of these projects. There are state grants available, and we're under requirements from KDHE and the EPA to do these projects. So we will be using that to our advantage. If they want us to do the projects, then hopefully they can kick in to help make them work financially. So. Okay, next slide. And the next one. And then the last kind of series in here is the ERP. We save for equipment purchases in the same way that we save for capital improvement infrastructure projects. This can help us out to know, how many vehicles we might need in 3 years. Helps us set something in there and say that dump truck is really struggling. We maybe can get 2 more years out of it. And you put that in for 2 years in the future as a placeholder to try to save up some money to make that purchase. So this is another place where staff made some cuts upon request from the City Commission. We changed a couple policies for how often we replace things to make sure that it lasts into the future. And again, we do offset these purchases as well with revenue grants. I'll mention it later, but Chief Weiser just got a grant for some PPE equipment that was in here, so. Okay, next slide. And then the last page is the state form that we would turn into the state. This is with the proposed mill levy based on what is presented in front of you today. That 46.358 is on the right-hand column at the bottom. You see the breakdown at the top, how much goes to the general fund, how much goes to debt service, and how much goes to the library. The highlighted numbers are 2025's tax revenue, the $4,918,000, and the proposed 2026 tax revenue, 2.5%, which is $5,042,000. So again, this will be available to the public for the next week to review, to you all to review, which you've seen all of this through our budget workshops as well. And then I'll make probably a similar presentation next week at the public hearing. and then we'll take public comments. You all can make any decisions you want to make at that point, at the hearing, or at the vote after either public hearing, and then we will approve a budget at next Monday's meeting. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Westhoff. That was very thorough, and we appreciate your taking the time to go through this for transparency purposes. As we all know, when we had the information come back from our survey, one of the things that was highlighted, that more transparency, and I, for one, am very pleased at the transparency of our budget process. I know that budgeting time can be very stressful. I know that our citizens are hurting. Everyone is hurting at this point. But I think this is a responsible budget. No one likes increases, but I do think that we've taken a measured and important step in keeping the city running efficiently, but also recognizing that some of our costs have gone up as well, but keeping things as low as possible to ease that for our citizens. Does anyone have any questions or concerns?
I appreciate what our local paper's done for us that way, keeping
Yeah.
things in the paper. I think it can really, it's a great asset for us here, I think, to keep the people involved and hopefully involved and informed both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we definitely appreciate you, and of course, we know that the paper has changed somewhat, and I, for one, am grateful for the change. I like the new format and appreciate that as well. Anyone else have any concerns, comments regarding the budget? Okay.
I just have
yeah.
one. I don't have a question right now, but if I were to call you tomorrow or the next day, I may have you give me some info.
My number
So I
is
just-
always available.
I know you are. You've been very, very good. There's just a few questions that I need to put my head together to
Sure,
make sure.
absolutely. Like I said, it'll be available for a week, and we'll have the public hearing as well, so.
Right.
And again, that public hearing will be September 8th at 4:30 here at City Hall. And as Mr. Mestoff has said, all of this information is on our website.
Correct.
All of that is on our website, so I encourage all citizens to take a look at it, obviously, all of us to take a look at it as well. And again, Mr. Westhoff, if you could go through, again, currently what we are suggesting is a 46.358 mill levy, which would amount to a 2.5% increase in tax. That 46.358 mill levy is approximately 1.493 mills over the revenue neutral rate.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Again, we understand and know that citizens are concerned about the economy, but there are things that we must do, so we appreciate all of that. All right. Okay, with that, we will go on to number 2, Ordinance 6723, Amendment to Ordinance on Keeping Chickens. Mr. Westhoff.
Just a procedural note on this too. We won't actually be voting to adopt the ordinance tonight. The vote tonight would be whether or not you want to propose this ordinance to the Planning Commission. Then they will hold a public hearing. So that's, if you make a motion tonight, it would be to propose this ordinance to the Planning Commission or not, up to you, but that's how it's being presented, so. Background: on October 17th, 2016, the City Commission at the time adopted Ordinance 6537, which allowed residents of single-family residential districts, R1, to keep chickens under certain regulations. It was codified into Section 729 of our zoning ordinances, requires a permit, requires an inspection from staff to make sure they're appropriately set back from the neighboring lots and they don't create a nuisance to the neighbors. But it specifically stated that they're only allowed in R1 lots. This summer, a resident requested a chicken permit for their single-family home, but discovered it's not zoned R1. They brought it to the Planning Commission to rezone. They were denied there, and they brought it to you all recently, and you also denied that as a spot zoning concern. However, at that meeting, you gave staff direction to consider amending that ordinance to, rather than look at the zoning, to look at the use of the property, whether or not chickens would be reasonable on that property. So the proposed ordinance in front of you that you all can consider changes the language of just one section of that zoning ordinance, and it changes it from saying that chickens may be kept on any lot or parcel that is zoned R1, and instead it says chickens may be kept within city limits of Atchison on any lot or parcel that contains one continuously occupied single-family dwelling. That language was selected in part because it's used in the rest of the ordinance, talking about that residence needs to be occupied. You can't put a chicken coop in the back of an empty lot or of an abandoned home, because the whole point is that they're supposed to be cared for and looked after so they don't create a nuisance to neighbors. So that's the proposal. That would effectively change it so that when a permit is received and the city employee goes out to check the site, they also just look and see, is this a house or is this an apartment complex or a business? And they can maybe ask a couple questions to confirm that, and then that would make it approved. So
we need to send this to the planning commission?
yeah, so if you want to, the action would be to propose to planning commission this ordinance to section 729.
I'd move that we propose this to the planning commission.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we send the proposed ordinance, number 6723, to the Planning Commission for their review and consideration. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is there a number of chickens?
Yes, there's a limitation based on the
It's
space.
not included in the,
Well, we didn't change that part of the
rest of
ordinance.
it.
Everything else stays the same except that one section.
we know what the number of chickens.
Off
Like 4.
off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Six.
10.
10?
It is.
10, no.
But it's also based on the size
And
that
no
you
rooster.
can provide, the lot.
Okay. Okay, all right. Any,
And they're free range?
They can be, but they have to stay within the yard, so you need to have fencing. They're supposed to be within a run of some kind.
The reason I ask, I drove up St. Joe yesterday, south end there, this guy had like 20 chickens and 2 sheep and a goat.
That wouldn't be allowed in our city limits, so I don't know if he was in city limits or not there, but.
Didn't see any llamas, but I was looking.
okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns? Additions? All right. If not, all those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. We will be sending the proposed ordinance to the Planning Commission for review. All right, next we will have South Headworks outfall pipe replacement presented by Mr. Clinton McNamee. Mr. McNamee.
Hello. So this is, yes, the South Headworks facility, which most people probably won't ever lay eyes on. It's south side of town, obviously. It's at the bottom of the Riverview Drive bluff, sandwiched between the bottom of the bluff and the railroad tracks. And it today primarily serves as a lift station and also it's also a combined sewer overflow outfall point. And just real briefly for those who might be listening, combined sewers, we have those here in Atchison. Typically, it's an issue when we get rainfall event and our storm runoff and our sanitary sewage runs through some of the same pipes. And so a lot of times during storm events, creates more flow than those pipes can handle. And then instead of going all to the wastewater treatment plant, some of it gets diverted out these CSO outfall points. And this is one of those that we're talking about tonight. And it has collapsed. I'm not sure, it's been at least 4 or 5 years ago when this was initially put in the plans. So I'm not exactly sure how long this has been an issue, but the pipe is almost completely collapsed. So that when we do have CSO events, the water surcharges. It can't go through this pipe, so it surcharges out through a vent pipe and discharges mixed sewage and storm runoff onto the ground, which is obviously another environmental concern, and it also is a bit of a liability for the nearby railroad tracks. So this was put into what we call our long-term control plan about 4 years ago, and also it got incorporated because it was in our long-term control plan into our consent agreement with KDHE, such that we're required to do this project. It's the last project on the current amendment of that agreement. Later actually tomorrow, we're meeting with KDHE to look at the next amendment, but this was supposed to be the last one of this one. It was originally supposed to be done in December. However, we've had different delays with mostly with the railroad component because such close proximity to the railroad tracks. It took them a while to tell us what we needed to incorporate into our project to be able to even do the project right next to those tracks. So there was quite a bit of back and forth on that. It's a 30-inch pipe. It's going under the tracks. It'll have a check valve on the end of it on the discharge side on the riverbank so that river water can't go back up through it backwards. There's a floodgate there now. It's changed over the years since we first conceived of this, but the most recent engineering estimate was about $1.4 million to do this project. The bids came back in. The lower base bid, there was two bids. The lowest base bid from Mega KC was $2.3 million and some change. We went to them, kind of talked through it. There's a lot of cost in there on mobilization, more than we had anticipated. It's quite a bit on there for the railroad additional scope because of the railroad accommodations. Didn't see much of a potential for reducing the scope other than to disregard the bid alternate for some energy efficiency upgrades. So we're not considering that. That would have put us over 3 probably. The contractor, when we asked them about the cost, and it was kind of a bit of a sticker shock, they cited, some unknowns with impending tariffs and things of that nature. Also you could throw in, if you read through the recommendation letter from BG Consultants, who is our designer and bid administrator, they cited lack of competitive bids. We only got 2. However, we asked about going back out to bid, and that did not seem, there was no confidence that was going to produce better results. So in order to sort of stay on track, even though we're technically behind, we have an approved extension with KDHE for the completion timeline. We've also been waiting on, the EPA has some grant funds for this type of stuff that KDHE administers. KDHE was asking the EPA for grant extensions as we've been trying to figure this project out, and we just recently got confirmation that those grants will be extended till about a year from now, give us time to get this project completed. The only difference is, and that grant amount is $777,000. And what I haven't got back word yet for sure is if we're able to use all of that, because originally, 2 years ago or something, when we first started doing the paperwork on this, it was a lower amount, and some of it was for energy efficiency, and most of it was for sewer separation or CSO issues. And so over the time, it's gotten combined into one pot. It's grown to $777,000. And my question is all of that $777,000 eligible for this CSO project? Because there's no energy efficiency in the scope anymore. And so we're still waiting on that, but I think even if we eventually get the answer that some of it had to been towards energy efficiency, I think it's probably at least 2/3 of it's probably still going to be CSO, because that was kind of the original ratio. If that makes sense. I don't want to say it, I said fortunately in the report. It's just kind of coincidentally. I don't know if it's fortunately in the grand scheme of things, but at the same time all this is going on, we've been working with the Corps of Engineers on those congressionally directed spending funds that went to the Corps for CSO separation projects, and they've been working on the design of the 15th Street sewer separation project. All that's kind of going on at the same time. Well, because South Headworks, this project we're talking about tonight, was included in the long-term control plan, which is what the Corps based its agreement with the city of Atchison on. Any project in that the city spends money on can count towards the local matching requirement for those earmark funds, which total $5 million to the Corps of Engineers. So if we were to max that out, our local cost would have been about 1.7 million. So we're going to spend 2.3 on this project, which more than, satisfies our match on the remaining Corps of Engineers projects. And I was kind of doing some quick math a little bit ago, and had we continued with Plan A, where we did the full core project and we spent 1.6 or 7 million with them, and we did this project by itself versus what we're trying to do, I think we're getting maybe 1.6 to 1.8 million dollars lower than what, and that's depending on that grant, how that works out, than what we would have spent otherwise.
Yeah.
The downside is that's 1.6 or 1.8 million dollars less scope of the core. That scope's not even determined yet, because this 15th Street project shouldn't use up all of our core partnership funding. So I just wanted to point that out. It actually helps our financial outlook. It doesn't necessarily accomplish as much CSO separation projects, but it actually helps our financial outlook in the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, so like the quick bullet points are, we're required by KDHE to do this project. It was delayed for a long time, and the cost went up by $900,000 to $1 million. But we're using that payment to leverage, to match the federal money that was not guaranteed before. That's the fortunate side, is that money could have been called back until we put in our local match. So now if we count this project towards 100% of our local match, we'll lock in that $5 million from the Corps for future CSO projects. So kind of going back to that budget that we looked at, in previous iterations of the CIP, there was 1.4 million this year for this South Headworks project, well, last year, but this year. And then there was 1.6 million for this 15th Street separation project next year. Well, now it's 2.3 this year for the South Headworks and 0 for the 15th Street separation next year. So that's where he's talking about we actually ended up gaining some. I mean, we still lose some too because the project costs more, but we're leveraging that to lock in federal money that wasn't 100% guaranteed, but now it will be. So
What's the energy efficient?
Well, it wasn't going to be.
What was that? What did that entail?
It was going to update the communications, like the remote communications to the site, because that way they can talk to it from the main water treatment plant, and also put variable frequency drives on the big stormwater motors and things like that, so they don't just, it would be like a true energy efficiency in terms of lowering the electrical costs over the course of time would be the promise of it. But that was like, I think it should show there's
$800,000 more.
To save how much energy? Don't sound to me like it'd save
It
that
didn't,
much
I don't
energy.
think,
No, that's why we're not recommending that.
I just-
That, out there at the end, you said you had, I forget what you call it. Is that just a flipper on that pipe out there at the river's end?
Right now, it's
No,
a floodgate now. And then what it would be is like a check valve.
It's an automatic floodgate, or is it one you have to manually operate?
That one I don't think has an operator on it. I mean, it would have a manual operator, but I don't believe that's one of the automated ones. I could be wrong about that.
I didn't know what you meant by check. I mean, we've used them before, that all they were was a gate that floated, pushed out, and came back. It worked perfect.
Yeah, that's how
Check valve.
that's how that one, the new one, the proposed one would operate. It wouldn't be like,
It would automatic.
it wouldn't
just
be
by
like
gravity.
motorized or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just have a question. That this line, this pipe that we're replacing, is it a masonry pipe, or what is it made out of? That
It'd be steel reinforced concrete pipe.
and that we're going to replace it with the same thing.
Yeah, and then
We're not going to replace
The
it with
old one-
PVC or anything.
No, 30-inch. It's a 30-inch
30-inch
pipe, so it's
concrete pipe.
concrete pipe, yeah.
Okay. And how long of a stretch is this pipe?
it says here in the quantities, I think.
Far away. Is it?
I mean,
30
is it
in.
100 yards, is 300 yards?
Probably at least 250.
Oh, I guess it's ductile iron, excuse me. 179 feet.
Pardon me?
The new pipe is ductile iron and it's 179 feet long. But there's
It'd be that far over to the tracks, wouldn't it?
And then 140 feet of the 42-inch.
it's got to get over to the riverbank.
So you'd have to add those two to get the distance, wouldn't you? That's a long ways across it, I think. Doesn't make much difference, that's what we.
And then the old pipe's being grouted, which is, I said the old pipe's being filled in with grout, so that's a fairly significant cost just by
But it was
itself.
masonry, right?
I believe that one, I
That
feel
was
like that's
far
what
better.
they told me. But
We have to fill that.
I had these conversations in detail 2 years ago, and now it's,
I just remember as a kid going down there and playing around that.
This
I don't know if those are
Dangerous.
visible anywhere.
This one's
Kid.
underground. This one's
Or
underground.
know where it comes out.
At the river?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, all right.
All right. Kid.
Do we have to fill that other pipe? Can we just abandon it?
I think the fear would be, especially since it's underneath tracks and things, that there'd be voids and sinkholes and things of that nature. So I think the appropriate way to do it is fill that in with grout.
That was quite a bit of money to fill that pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in doing this project, we're keeping with the EPA because we really don't have a choice, correct? We must do this.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Well, I will accept that we need to do it, but I guess in looking at the bidding, I'm amazed at the difference in some line items.
Right.
For example, the first line, mobilization for Mega, 920,000, and the other one was 400,000. So if you go a couple other, just to name a couple other line items, railroad requirement, Mega 300,000, the other one is 515,000. You go down to the bottom, you mentioned grout. Grout by Mega is 74,000, but 450,000 with the other company. The bidding process is,
Looks to me like if we could combine the lows on both of them with some company, we'd be in a whole lot better shape.
it doesn't give me a lot of confidence in the bidders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we ought to
Other
look at
other
maybe
than the bottom line.
We talked
Possibly
about
part of that is the bids asked for a minimum, like a percentage of the total cost to be capped, to try to cap the mobilization as a percentage of the project. I think one bidder, the higher bidder did that and the lower bidder didn't do that. And so I would think that but they still, were factoring in a certain amount of cushion for themselves because of the unknowns. I think that's a fair,
Be called the profit line.
and so they spread it out into other line items, whereas the Mega put it into mobilization. would be my
There's just not much
explanation of that.
consistency. The line items and bidding.
The
Some items
totals.
are very close.
Yeah.
There's great disparity in a number of them.
I don't know how you can get almost $1 million to
Mobilize?
mobilize.
Yeah.
It's a lot of freight and machinery. You don't think we could rebid this and get a better deal on this?
We might get a worse deal.
Might get a worse
That's-
deal.
Might, I mean, like he says,
Fear.
it's just so much screwed up deal there. It looks to me like, I don't know, I just,
Well, you're $1 million more after waiting a couple of years,
Yeah.
basically.
A
correct?
year, yeah.
I never did go through and look at took the lows off of both bids or whatever we end up. We'd end up about $1 million back, I think. Be a lot. I don't know.
Is there any time for any additional negotiation?
With the contractor?
Bid?
Yeah, we've, like I said, we've had conversations with the contractor. I don't think there's any wiggle room to reduce scope enough to make a significant change. And this is not that
Well, we don't want to lose that.
elaborate
deal
of a project. It's just,
That's
a lot of-
bad thing.
where it is and what it's under, and the access to it's somewhat limited, and the staging area is very small, and it's materials that the contractor, have said that they're not confident about the pricing, so they've probably factored in some cushion there to protect themselves from the
Yeah.
time that they bid it to the time that we decide if we want to
Those
do
kind of
it.
projects have a lot of unknowns, I'm sure.
Undercharge.
Yeah.
So they have to
I've
protect
just-
themselves.
we got 3 football fields.
Yeah, I understand. All right, so then with this, we spend the 2,323,822, including our 25,000 in change order. We do this, and then next year, we will not have to.
Well, next year, then we lock in the federal money
Okay.
for the project that the Corps is currently working on, which is targeted for next year, early 2027, I believe, was the most recent that we saw, which is separating 15th Street CSO,
Okay.
which is also a bit of a landmark because it would be the first fully separated section of town. And in the meantime, we will begin again this week negotiating the new amendment contract, basically, with the state, outlining the projects that need to be completed in the future. Make sure we include that 15th Street project since we're already underway with it. And then we'll also try to negotiate terms to maybe space these out, make things a little more reasonable for the future for this kind of uncertainty.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I'm a little nervous about federal funding.
Well, this
I know you say now, it's been told.
what they've said to us was this: actually, they get the money. Like they get the money in their bank accounts. The Corps does, and they start working on the project. Basically, yeah. I think that overall it's uncertain, but it makes it far more certain doing it this way.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. At this point, then, I would entertain a motion to authorize city staff to hire Mega KC to replace the outfall pipe at South Headworks in the amount of $2,323,822, including an additional $25,000 in change order authority. Is
I
there?
make such a motion.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, thank you. All right, we have communications by our city manager, Mr. Westhoff.
Thank you. In communications, we have meeting minutes from the Atchison Housing Authority on June 17th and the Atchison Library Board from April 28th, May 19th, and June 23rd.
Okay. right, any comments? Okay, if not, informational items?
Then we have the financials from the Atchison Event Center, and we have Travis here. Can answer any questions you might have. It looked like it was basically a break-even month.
Higher numbers.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, it must have been on the side column. You didn't get the run-up of events that occurred that month, and I just brought that information for you. We had, it was called Core of Renew, I don't, you can't read her hand. Renewal and Charity. Core of Renewal and Charity. It was a Catholic group that had a 3-day conference. We had 100 people there for 3 separate days. And we also had our Grease production. So our TA Pro Grease production, and there was 4 days of that, 5 performances. So there were 574 that came for those particular productions. And that's what helped kind of get us to that bottom line. But, you know, there again, the more we made, the more we spent to make it. So that's the beauty of creating content. As opposed to just renting out the facility. But any questions about any of that? Anything I can answer for you?
Okay. Anyone, any questions? Okay. Okay, I think done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I have my update. Okay, folks in the area of LFM Park will have noticed that the playground installation is underway there for the new playground, and the sidewalk is also going in there as well. The splash pad contractor is doing some initial grading and staking, and they should mobilize soon as well. Some residents have asked about the flags and survey work that's going on North 5th Street. That is for next year's Safe Routes to School sidewalk project. They've started doing some utility locations in that area. Our streets crew is about 2/3 of the way done with paving Riverview Drive. They've also started work converting the 300 block of Laramie from brick to asphalt, which City Commission approved in the past. Then after that, they'll be working on some work on 298th Road up near the future daycare center. As Clinton and I both have mentioned, we're meeting with KDHE this week to start negotiations and discussions on that next CSO consent agreement amendment. It's a big amendment. The last one has lasted a handful of years, and that they usually go out into the future for quite a ways. Mentioned before in the budget presentation on the planning side, we're going with a consultant for the planning services. We have a building inspector opening that will start sometime in October. That we have some interviews next week, which is good news. But the job is still open, and we're still taking applications too, if anyone is interested. A couple updates from police and fire. Chief Wilson reported there were multiple drug arrests over the weekend. They were working really hard over Labor Day, so thank you for that. Chief Weiser reported that we're still on track to have an increase in calls as time goes on. He thinks things will start to slow down a bit in the fall, but that they had no major incidents, but that calls in general are still increasing. He also reported, like I said, that he received a grant award for the purchase of some of his PPE, so that will cut some of those expenses and be able to provide more protection equipment for our firefighters. I made an announcement this week after meeting with Chief Wilson and Clinton and our park supervisor. We've been having increased vandalism and graffiti and littering in some of our parks and public spaces that the city maintains. So we want to just let people know that that's happening, that we see it. We're trying to do what we can to get it cleaned up and prevented, preferably. We are also asking people if they see something happening to please call it in right away. If they find something vandalized or litter on the ground, they can report that to the city and we'll get it cleaned up right away as well. We don't have the staff to patrol every inch of our parks and parkland every day, and so we don't necessarily see things, but sometimes residents will find something first. But a couple notes on that. We are planning to start closing the bathroom under the Fifth Street Viaduct at 3 p.m. each day, so it'll be open from 8 to 3. That'll give staff a time before the end of the day to check it and make sure it's fit to be opened again the next day, and if it's not, to repair it before it reopens. We'll also, we think, cut down on some of the vandalism that's happening, which seems to be happening in the evenings and at night. We're not taking any other measures at this time, but we are looking at other security measures in the parks, trying to balance safety and cleanliness with, not wanting everyone to have restrictions on how they use the parks. So it's a bit of a balance, and we're trying to navigate that.
Might be helpful to mention what the cumulative acreage is.
Yeah, we have around 500 acres of parkland. Not all of those are just parks. It includes all of the dams, which are, public spaces. Many of them get used for fishing and other recreation as well. But we do have 500 acres, which is a lot for a city of our size. Jackson Park alone is 100 acres, so. Okay. Update on card fees. We are really close with a vendor that we like, that we'd bring to you soon, hopefully. I'm guessing at the next meeting, not the budget hearing, the next regular meeting after that. The fees will be below 4%, which was the initial kind of estimate that we put out, the cap that we could do. We are going to be passing those on to people who want to continue using cards. We may end up having to use a new website for the payments than we currently use today, but the hope is that it will be a better process and a better experience for our utility customers and anyone else wanting to make a payment online, while also relieving that impact on property taxes and on our other revenues of having to pay those fees in the long term. Likely won't happen October 1st, just because this took longer than expected to get through some of the legalities on it, but we'll get that out as soon as possible. And then the last thing, again, as I think I mentioned it last week, but we kind of confirmed that the city's Star Bond did officially pay off on September 1st. That was slated to be a 25-year bond. It paid off in 8 years due to the success of the businesses in that district. We are still working with Commerce to see if there's any way we can leverage that to try to gain a little more resources for that district without having to give up those state sales tax dollars back to the state. So we're still working on that. We still have some leeway there, but it did officially pay off on September 1st.
So how does that affect the businesses that were involved? Will their taxes be lower now?
No. I mean, the businesses were partially received some of the businesses in that district received some of the funding to help them kind of get into business at the beginning. But for the most part, those funds it was city sales tax dollars, county sales tax, county, I don't remember if the county was part of it. I think it was just the city's sales tax and the state's sales tax. Yeah, and some of the transient guest tax. Dollars over base that were spent in that district, instead of going to the state and the city's general fund, went into those improvements that happened in that district. That's the Farmers Market Pavilions, the Amelia Earhart Museum out at the airport, as well as, like I said, some of the help for the actual businesses that were coming in. The two keystone businesses in that district that really made it work the best are the Taco Bell and the Holiday Inn. There's other businesses in the district, but those were two new businesses, which really helps with the Star Bond district and helped it pay off fast. So right now, that 6.5% sales tax from that district is pouring back into the district, right? It's staying local. If it paid off and we aren't able to get anything else in place, that 6.5% will go back to the state. The city will start to collect our 1%, which would help our overall revenue. But in the long run, it's, I think, better to try to increase the infrastructure in that district, capturing those state sales tax dollars that otherwise would go somewhere else.
All right. Any other questions?
Those bathrooms down there, we looked at maybe putting I went down there, it looked like we had 2 doors. If we could put a camera, shut one door and put a camera on the other door, is that something we looked at all?
We're looking at some camera options.
I hate to shut them down completely.
Yeah, we don't want to shut them down.
Okay,
Anything else?
good enough.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Westhoff. All right, at this time, we will have governing body comments. Mr. Commissioner Greenlee?
I'd just like to commend Fire Chief and Police Chief and Clinton and their department and their folks for doing a good job, a splendid job as far as keeping it safe and keeping the city clean and running. A lot of people don't realize the amount of effort and work that goes into that. I'd just like to make that known here. Show my appreciation for the job you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I'll
Vice Mayor
piggyback
Wilcox.
on that and I'll say, in addition to the service, the way that those 2 departments work with the community and being helpful, informative, in addition to just their presence. I saw 5 police cars around me at some point today. I got a little nervous. But,
Thank you.
there's a presence that says, hey, do the right thing.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, Commissioner Murphy?
Well, it's interesting that you 2 previous commissioners mentioned exactly what I was thinking. And I was thinking that our police department and our fire department kind of give us a personality. And I think it's a personality worth having for when people come to our town, or how people who have, some activity with the police or the fire department on how they treat the citizens. I think it's marvelous. I really do. The people that somehow you hire some decent people. I'm glad.
Appreciate all your comments.
All right, Commissioner Slattery?
Same deal. Move on.
Okay, very good. I also echo those accolades, and well-deserved, because I think I've been heavily involved in the League of Kansas Municipalities, and the first meeting that I ever attended when I first came on to the commission, and I attended the annual conference, I sat in on the criminal justice and all of that, and to hear some of the things that some of our counterparts struggle with, and we don't, is just, that is a commitment to both Chief Wilson and Chief Weiser, and just thank you so much for all you do, because you do make us safer. The way that you interact with individuals, we're just ever so grateful. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Mayor.
With that, if there isn't anything further, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make such a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. If there are no questions, all those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Mayor, I have one thing for you to sign.
Okay, ma'am. I will be right there.